my friends. It's me, Danielle Frank from Beauty Uncovered Podcast. We are kicking off Mental Health Month with a great conversation with B. Arthur. No, not that B. Arthur. This is B. Arthur, the clinical therapist. And wonderful should be her middle name. She's quite wonderful. And she's also the founder of The Difference, which is the first on-demand therapy service for corporations and communities. And they basically provide scalable support, mental health support, as a service towards corporations and be able to give that to their employees, which is really quite awesome. They are going to be spreading that outwardly, hopefully by next year. And what I love about this conversation is that we really speak to how mental health is something that really should be normalized, getting help, going to a therapist. And in particular, when it comes to, you have a life event coming up, why not go to a therapist and be prepared instead of having to deal with the aftermath? Also, we talk about a lot of different things that are trending right now on social media, different sayings, because people are speaking very clearly about PTSD, trauma, weaponized incompetence, all these fun terms that she's going to give some clarity for. So with that being said, let's watch B. Arthur make the difference. B, I'm so excited that you're here, but I have to admit, I'm kidding. My hair is just not
cute
today.
Your hair wants to be noticed, to appreciated, not denigrated. Cowlick lives matter, okay?
Cowlick,
you're your so special bad. Thing. Don't be
I am so excited that you're here. Full disclosure, we have already talked, I feel like already several times, but really just once technically. And I've been really excited about having you on. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. I love you. We're fast friends. So thanks so much.
Well, I want everybody to get an idea of a little bit of your background and your journey thus far, because some of the stuff that you were telling me, I thought I was prepared. I didn't even know, like the Shark Tank, all this other stuff. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes. So my name is B. Arthur. That's my real name. These are my real boobs. And it's true. And I'm just lucky like that. So I've been a licensed mental health counselor for the last 13 years. I did a dual master's in counseling and clinical psychology at Columbia University. And I've been in psychology technology specifically for the last 11 years. And by that, I mean, my last company was one of the first to move therapy online with video. We were called Pretty Padded Room, and MTV called us the future of therapy. We were on Shark Tank, NPR.
Okay, wait. Pretty Padded Room. You have to tell me where you came up with that name, because that is genius.
So as you and I were talking, we are very intuitive women, and literally so many ideas have just come to me. It's weird, just dropped in my mind. And this is actually my third company. My very first one failed fast and furious right out of grad school. But I was embarrassed. I hadn't told anybody. And all my friends were therapists, and it was still hard to get a therapist. I just finished grad school. So I was visiting my sister in Mozambique, and we were under a malaria net, and my sister and I are super close. And I just felt so alone and so much shame. And I was like, damn, I remember this article about this place in Japan that had a place where you could go in and just buy plates. You could buy mugs, purple plates, bowls, and you just break them and you pay for what you broke and you leave and you get on with your day. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to just bang on my keyboard and just get it out of my body and just get on with my day. And so that was Pretty Padded Room. Our tagline was a nice place to go crazy. So I was like, this was in 2011. The stigma exists. I was like, let's just lean into it. I was a domestic violence counselor at the time. So most of my clients were women. All of my teammates were women. So I was like, let's just go in and serve millennial women in our madness from 25 to 35. So we were one of the first people. I didn't know what I was doing, but I made it on a Shark Tank. I made it into Y Combinator, where I became the first African-American female founder. And that was back in 2014. And then Talkspace kind of came out of nowhere and ate my lunch. You've heard of Talkspace. Boo, Danielle, boo.
Well,
Okay, no, I'm not a hater. No, shout out to Talkspace, because we all came up together. I know, Honey, I've been in this for 10 years. But anyways, long story short, Talkspace came and took over video and text therapy. But the calls kept coming and the call kept coming. And thankfully that show Billions had just come out. Do you watch Billions?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's good.
I have to check it out. So what happened with this one?
So anyway, I know I was about to tell you the premise of Billions. The whole point is they have this therapist called Wendy, and everybody started saying, and she's their on-site therapist for this like crazy ass hedge fund. And so I started telling people I was Chocolate Wendy, and so I would be the therapist for like big corporations, like high addiction, high burnout careers, like medicine, ad agencies, legal. And these were people with means. These were people with health insurance, and they like still couldn't get a therapist. When they posted my link, I filled up for months, and you would see just in 20 minutes, you would start to see their shoulders go down. And I was like, that's the issue. It's not tech. It's not AI. It's access. Like that problem still hasn't been solved because of health insurance. So that's how I started The Difference, where we believe the right talk at the right time can make all the difference. And we connect to, that's our tagline. And we started as the first Alexa skill for therapy, but then Alexa had her privacy issues. So now we just do it straight through the phone. So it's essentially just a hotline. And and we connect with a therapist in 30 minutes or less by phone, because we believe the right talk at the right time can make all
the difference. So let me ask you something. When it comes to this particular service, right now, that's not necessarily accessible to everybody. This is right now through corporations. But I mean, is this something that potentially could be opened up even bigger? Because I know even from my local area, trying to find a therapist is really complicated now. Like I have people on my list, but they're not taking any new clients.
They're not taking new clients. It's so frustrating. It drives me crazy because it's like our industry is supposed to reduce stress, but there's like so many stressful steps to get started. And it's unfortunate. Can I cuss on this show?
Oh, why not?
It's the cock blocking insurance industry, because seriously, they've made it hard. Let's bleep it. It's the insurance industry, because they've made it hard for both sides of the market, right? As a therapist, like my degree, for example, I was making $38,000 as a domestic violence counselor. I went to Columbia. So think about it. My loans were twice as much as that.
Oh my, yeah.
So when you do go into private practice, you can either charge somebody, a rich person, $300 cash under the table, or you can change a $60 reimbursement invoice for 3 months, So it's kind of like, and then so ideally a client with insurance should be able to pay a $20 copay, but the insurance industry makes you do so many unpaid hours of admin work, billing, and it's a really bad industry. So it's forced. So, and I agree, like on both sides, like I have a therapist who I love, but she's $800 a month. And like, I'm better when I talk to her, but it also makes me want to fight her, So I always say therapy is priceless, but it should not be so expensive.
I think it also should not be so inaccessible. And also, I mean, there definitely has to be a solution when it comes to insurance and making it easier. And I think this is really a fascinating concept that kind of is a workaround in many ways.
Yeah.
And for full clarity, because I'm sure I think I know the answer, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm assuming that, say, a business that like decides to partner with you in order to give their employees access to therapy, that's not information they can get.
Oh, completely separate. So, it used to be legal for you to fire somebody because they were in therapy. They
really?
Of course, they would.
Nowadays, nothing shocks me, but oh my gosh.
We've come a long way, with the corporations. And so that's actually our solve for it, because like insurance companies used to give you like 20 sessions a year. Most insurance gave you 20 sessions a year. But then CBT was introduced, and they say, you can cure somebody in 6 to 8 sessions. Or, like if they have anxiety or depression, they're going to perform. And so a lot of people didn't want their therapy on their insurance. But then people started using it, and the insurance started limiting how many sessions you could have a month. Your therapist might not take your insurance. It just is. Like it's an opaque headache mess. It's like anything else with health insurance. So that's what we're doing around The Difference. So we're not going through corporations. Exactly. We're going through co-working communities. So if you're a part of like WeWork or The Wing, you pay like $150 a month for like a desk. You can top up and get The Difference for another $75 and just have access to agency on demand. And so we're trying to innovate independent of insurance. And I like to think of myself as a therapy madam. So I have like an agency of therapists. And we want to be our own vendor. We're a co-op, we do revenue sharing. I'm still a hippie at heart. So it's like, I don't know, unfortunately, I've never cared about money. It's made me like a weird business person, but like, I do care about impact, and I can't rest until everybody has access to to therapy. It's not hard.
Well, I think that when you have good intentions, when you're going towards something, especially in business, it resonates. And then, hopefully that leads to money, get good people in place.
It leads to fulfillment.
Right. Well, I think that is the long run, right? I mean, to feel as though you're making a difference in the world, and the difference. Oh, look at that. Look what I just did there.
You're good. Do you need a dog?
So let's talk a little bit about the different, like,
mental health as a whole.
Mental health issues that you have, basically covered throughout things. Because I mean, like, and we talked about this, I have a little bit of a TikTok addiction. I love it. I love it. I could scroll forever, and I find that I am often in a lot of different, like, mental health, like, groupings of different things.
Yeah.
Everything from, and I feel like it's such a buzzword nowadays, is narcissism, because, it's very funny because it used to be, I remember reading some stat that they were saying narcissists are only diagnosed, it's a very tiny percentage, but I often think to myself, with a narcissist, typically they're not the ones that are going to get the mental health care. So, I mean, obviously that number is slightly skewed. And it's very interesting, the amount of people that are learning about, in this particular case, how to break free, or, how to heal from that kind of relationship. I mean, have you seen any of that kind of trending right now?
Yes, girl. So you and I share a little bit of a TikTok addiction. I love how you said a little. Let's do a quick note on addiction, because
I might have been on TikTok while you might have getting your set ready. I said I was planning something, but I was on TikTok.
You were just on TikTok. I wish you would have told me. I live for TikTok. Like, one time it told me that I was on there for 4 hours, and I felt shame, but I also enjoyed my time there, because that algorithm gets me. They are hilarious. They be teaching on there. So to that end, yes, I love Gen Z. I love how much open, like I said, like, for our generation and above, like, mental health has had this persistent stigma, and they love talking about themselves. I actually did my practicum when I was in grad school at a New York City public school, and I loved working with adolescents, because it's like pulling teeth with adults. But kids love talking about themselves, and I'm so glad that they have the language now. Like you said, narcissism, trauma, weaponized incompetence. Like, they really know a lot of stuff. However, it's kind of running into the same issue as the existing issues with mental health, which is to pathologize every negative behavior.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that.
It's a little overkill. I'm like, not everything is trauma, not everyone is a narcissist, as you're saying. And it's just a lot, but like, they're kids, so and again, like, this is stuff that I
think it's prevalent with kids and adults, in all honesty. I think that, granted, I think a lot of us are trying to process sometimes when we have a conflict with another person, whatever. And yes, their behavior might have been bad, but I also sometimes think we might not look at ourselves too much. So it's also automatically, they're a narcissist, or, what was it? Weaponizing competence. That's a huge one.
Yes.
That's a huge one. But I have to admit, I do feel like I see that as a very prevalent thing in relationships.
Oh yeah.
And I saw this theory, and I thought it was very fascinating, and I wanted to bring it up to you. Someone was saying that they felt as though, weaponize. Could you explain, first of all, what weaponizing competence is, so people understand?
Yeah. And like I said, there's really some great conversations being had, important issues that we don't have a lot of nuance for. So I do love introducing all these new topics. And you, as a boy mom, I'm sure have seen it and are trying to correct it. But essentially, weaponizing competence is similar to the concept of emotional labor, where women are expected. And forgive me if there's any male members, I just want to say, listening, I love men. I love how y'all smell. I love your slim hips. I love how dumb you are. I love men. I am not a man-hating feminist. However, in our society, what we're learning with the patriarchy and things like weaponizing competence, unfortunately, especially in America, men have been raised, and this is very generally speaking, men have been raised to be simple and selfish. Period. And unfortunately, because they're coddled, right? And they're told they're the top of the chain, and this should be it, and everybody should love you for that. And there's no room to grow, right? So, but no society can function like that with a bunch of selfish idiots. So women are raised to be caring and accommodating, and guess what? Complex. And so men have had a limited range of emotion and weirdly a limited range of participation in society, in the home, and things like that. So when we talk about emotional labor, it exists in a relationship, or it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could either be with a man with a fragile ego who's your boss, who you have to tend to and overperform so that he is comfortable, right? Like sacrifice your own comfort and safety sometimes to accommodate. So that's this emotional labor of a conversation or relationship.
Well, one of the things that I had, this theory that I had seen, and I thought it was fascinating, was that because from generation to generation, especially with men, they're part of a relationship, let's just say with a marriage, was to be the breadwinner. They were the ones that were supposed to bring the money. They were the ones that were supposed to bring stuff home, and that the wife was supposed to stay home. And as our economy has changed, having a single income household is very rare. I mean, it might be for some families, but it's not often. And that now you have two people that are coming in. So the women have stepped up to the plate in order to also bring in income into the household, but they're still carrying that emotional weight. So they have been able to adapt to a certain degree to the change of the times of the economic, way of the world, but the men have not, and again, this is a generalization because I have seen some men that really have stepped up. But for the most part, because of generational teachings, they have not figured out that their job is more than just bringing in income. They also have to have an equal part in everything that goes on at home.
And it's a transition, which is why I do have the empathy for men who are pushing back. Like they really were assigned to roles, provider and protector. And it's even worse emotionally, and again, this is why I'm very gentle with men, but the thing is, you're right, because of economic issues, women have evolved, when they were at war, when they became single mothers, women have evolved and men haven't necessarily to participate in the household, to be romantic, beyond. And as a result, they get frustrated. I always say, and this is just a joke, and please bleep out anything I have to say, but I always say that men, just in the same way there's a wide range of motion. Like I don't have a wide range of motion because my bra is sliding down. So I'm a limited range of motion. Similarly, you can have a wide range of emotion, but you can also have a limited range of motion. And I feel like sometimes with men, they've got 4 emotions: angry, scared, hungry, horny. And that's it, because a lot of men are not able to express emotion beyond lust or anger. And so they get frustrated. And like I said, it's really important as we address these issues because men are struggling in this limited existence. I mean, 80% of homicides are done by men, but 80% of suicides are done by men as well. So obviously they're suffering internally because they can't engage and connect. So I hope that more men get therapy and just kind of understand.
Absolutely. I think that I've actually had talked to someone that a male that did not necessarily connect emotion to their behavior, and they didn't understand, what do you mean? Like something from my past would actually make me
mad about something else, and that's
I'm not feeling anything. I just felt like doing it. No, you were feeling something, honey.
You feel it a lot.
And then when they really started exploring it, they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe." They did not realize that their behavior was being what the catalyst was an emotion.
Because they're not taught to think. They're
not connected.
They're not connected. And even I know many men in my 30s that don't have male friends, have a lot of trust issues with men as well. It's hard for men, even with kids, to make friends after a certain age. So there's not a lot of connection. And especially now where men are like, women are to this, I need a woman to be submissive. They keep cutting themselves off from opportunities for connection.
I've heard a lot of men are disposable. Why are we so disposable now? Well, part of this is because of the fact that women have been stepping up to the plate in order to provide for their family, but yet they're still taking care of everything by themselves. So for them, when someone is not being intuitive or taking on a certain amount of load, then, eliminating you, disposing of you, becomes, less of a burden because they're not taking care of your stuff.
You're not taking
So,
care. And that's the thing. Like, there's lots of women who would submit and, don't mind doing all the things, cooking and cleaning and just like being the happy person or whatever. But it's kind of like, you can't be in somebody's life unless you're making their life better, And I see all these men, people being like, oh, people are saying this about men. And it's like, we can't be a man anymore. Nobody's saying you can't be a man anymore. No one can take that away from you.
no.
You just can't be an asshole anymore. And you can't be an abuser anymore. Like, that's all we're asking. Like, ask
And
how
in many ways, I feel bad for men. I mean, like I said, I think it's a lot of people with good intentions because of the fact that, again, they were trained to believe this is what my responsibility is. And I take it very seriously. It's just the adapting part. Unfortunately, this is, in some ways, I often say that this is the job of women as we raise our sons.
Yes.
To kind of break that kind of curse and be able to have them more emotionally connected, have them understand that one of the greatest things that you can do in any kind of relationship is take care of your own stuff. I want to say a different S word, but I'm not going to. Take care of your own stuff. Take care of your own stuff and don't sit there and think that it is the obligation of the other person. Oh, they like it. No. Nobody likes it. They might like being of service and making you feel good, but like taking on another person's responsibility that they are completely capable of doing.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And yes, I think we should be the next generation. In our fave TikTok had this really great TikTok with this guy who they were all boys, same thing, 3 boys. And his mom used to take them to husband school. Like, here's how you make eggs, here's how you buy the right tampons and stuff. And, her husband, she was kind of doing it to be petty, to show him what she would have liked. But then her husband, like you're saying, just genuinely didn't know. Nobody has taught them this. We were forced to evolve. They are being asked to evolve, right? And they didn't know that anything was wrong. So you do have to be gentle when you're waking someone up, suggesting new things, but they have to be receptive as well. So I will say, ladies, there are men who are absolutely interested in learning how to be better.
Can I just say, this past weekend, we had my 20-year-old friend over, and he was with his girlfriend. We had them over for dinner. And at one point I was in my room and I hear a little knock, and it's his friend. I don't think he'd be upset. I'm not saying his name. He comes in and he goes, Mom, because he's been calling me mom for years. And I said, yeah, honey. He says, I was just wondering if you could help me on something. Yeah, sure. He says, something unexpected happened and my girlfriend really needs a tampon. Oh, wow. So do you happen to have something for her? Yeah, sure, honey. No problem. Here you go. He goes, thank you. I really appreciate it. The fact that he felt secure enough to knock on my door and ask me and not go, Joey, could you go in your mom's room and go get it? Yeah. No, I was like sitting there going, I'm so proud of you. I wanted to say it, but I was like, no.
You need positive reinforcement. You did the right thing here. This is how you treat somebody you care about. Somebody has to show them the way.
Yeah. No, I was so impressed. And I wanted to call his mom, man. Just be like, good for you.
You know what? Send him this interview. He got a shout out on Ola Plexus podcast. So this is how we reward the men in our lives. We're just like doing, more than the bare minimum.
I think it's really, I think there is, I look at the generations younger than me and it is really wonderful. And I do think that in all honesty, my generation, I'm 50, I'm Gen X, I guess. A lot of us raised those younger kids, those ones that are speaking up. And I do think that part of it is because of the fact that for a lot of us, not me in particular, my mother was a big proponent of therapy and mental health and making sure that you're grounded in that. But a lot of them really needed it. And they had parents that were a different generation that were like, suck it up. So for us, we might have not been getting it for ourselves, but we wanted our children to be able to have that.
Correct. Yeah, you see the need for it and like the value of it, because even same thing, like my family's from West Africa and Black people in general are like, that's white people stuff. Don't trust how they're going to institutionalize you. And it's true, like in the DSM, there have been Black people who have been hospitalized for schizophrenia by just saying they, speak to the Holy Spirit, So just like, of course. Or like, for example, I'm a wild one, right? When I was growing up, they told me I would get kicked out of high school because I was in a gifted school because I was really restless in class. But my grades were good, but I just needed a lot of attention, obviously. And my nurse, she was like, you're going to have to get on this. And they told me I was ADD. They told me I was bipolar, and they told me I was ODD, which stands for oppositional defiant disorder. And to this day, it enrages me because I'm like, so every kid who questions authority is mentally ill. And this is what I mean, but pathologizing every negative emotion, where I think the great Bob Marley once said, every emotion deserves equal respect. Anger has something to teach you. Sadness has something to teach you. Why in this country do we avoid every negative feeling? I hate toxic positivity. I hate be grateful for everything. Like, sit with the emotion. It has information for you. And that's what therapy does, helps you process it. It would be weird if you didn't feel bad ever. It would be weird if you didn't feel sad when a relationship died or a friendship died or a person died. It would be weird. So why can't
I want to ask you, like, what you consider is toxic positivity, because
oh, you know about it? You've seen something?
Well, no, because I've had people call me, Mary Poppins. They've called me one of my favorite all-time movies. All right, aside from Auntie Mame, greatest movie. If I have a chance to go see that, has to be.
B. Arthur's in it.
What's that?
B. Arthur's in it. The original B. Arthur.
Is she not
with Lucille Ball?
No, there's one before that. I don't like the one with Lucille Ball. I like the one that was with Rosalind Russell. She was amazing. You have to look at that one because that is beyond. I'm beyond.
Maybe
what my favorite line, and it is my favorite quote, and I say it all the time, is life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. I love the whole entire thing, but I also really loved Pollyanna and the Glad Game, So I have always been tried to always look at the bright side of life in every scenario. And there are times where I'm like, oh my God, I hope I'm not being like a toxic positivity, because it's just my nature.
Yeah, if it's just your nature. But I've seen people, especially in the wellness movement, the yoga movement and stuff, where it's like slap a smile and everything, and I just think that you should honor every emotion. Like, I really think emotions can teach you stuff. So if you're avoiding them, like, you wouldn't, if your knee hurts, you wouldn't just ignore it, right? Like, you would go get it fixed. So for me, a lot of times, especially when we're looking at depression, like, the number one feature that we see with depression is anger. They say that anger is depression turned outward. Right. Because like, I am feeling this. No, you need to feel this. Right. Like, because the soul is seeking balance. So if I get too hippy dippy, but there's like but anger is also very honest, right. From an evolutionary perspective, it reveals what we're dedicated to. I'm ready to defend. I'm ready to, or, when I used to do couples counseling, I would see people yelling at each other. And I'm like, yeah, this means people yell when they feel very far apart. So there's things that we can understand about this that can help you make informed decisions about how you want to behave later, which is why it's behavioral health. But you have to look at the wound, and people don't want to look at the wound. And that's when it's toxic positivity,
I want to ask you one more question, because it is another word that's tossed around a lot. But again, I do like that people are starting to identify it, and that is trauma. Mm-hmm. Even PTSD. The interesting thing is that I do feel as though people get a little confused what it actually means. Because I've heard a lot of kids go, "Oh, I was totally triggered." No, you weren't. You didn't like what you heard, but I didn't see you drop into the floor and going into an emotion that that triggered you, right. From a trigger. So could you be a little bit more specific about what trauma is? Because I think, again, I love that so many younger generations are having this conversation and really identifying. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's kind of spreading outwardly. Mm-hmm. And older people like myself are starting to recognize that we've gone through things that are traumatic, mm-hmm. and that when we ignore it, it comes up.
Yes. Energy doesn't go away until you do something with it. And if it's helpful to think about mental health issues or mental health spectrum, because like there's a spectrum to everything. It helps if you think about it as just like a symptom, like this is just a symptom, but most importantly, it's temporary. So when you talk about trauma, PTSD, any of the super like clinical mood personality disorders. So in psychology, we call it axis 2. And so this is like a true diagnosable, like 1 out of every 5 people has something that no matter how well things are going, they will feel depressed because they have a chemical imbalance, right? That's clinical depression. No matter how well things are going, they will feel anxiety. Trauma is an interesting one because it's a result of an external thing. And like you're saying, a lot of older generations are realizing they had trauma, right? But they had to deal with it. And so sometimes their coping mechanism is to avoid anything painful. And then they are not able to extend the same empathy to somebody else's who is in pain. So that is a trauma response, right?
Yeah.
However, at the risk of sounding toxic positivity, I have seen too many people say, oh, like I got yelled at, for doing something wrong and that was traumatic, and so I don't want to look at life as this series of things that you have to avoid, or these feelings that you can never feel. And also, like, some trauma changes you. I really believe this is why I love therapy. People come to me in pain, and on the other side of this, they are better, right? This is the only way to evolve. Right. It's just like a video game. You have to you have to beat something to get to the next level. And so I like to think of trauma as just a transformative experience.
That's
right?
Interesting.
I am different now because this thing happened, right? And if you look at the flip side of it, right? You're different once you become a mother. That doesn't mean childbirth wasn't fucking traumatic. You were different.
Oh God, yeah.
When you leave your house.
It's very funny because I still remember my first child giving birth to him, to every single, it's been 24 years, every single detail. The other two was easy. It was like, I got the mail.
It was a traumatic.
But the first one was so traumatic. It really was like, ooh.
Yeah, think about it. The memory is still there and your body is trying to heal.
But I don't think that it's necessarily something that I feel. Maybe with the second one, I was still holding on to that and I was terrified. But then, I was able to let it go and just do what I had to do and it was fine. But I think what it is that I just see that as that was a traumatic experience, but it's let go. I think the interesting thing is seeing trauma happen and the result of it that happens throughout your life, and you're not connecting it to that trauma. It could be, an abusive marriage. That's, I would assume, is a little bit more long-term. It could be a death. I often say to this day, I am dealing with the trauma of my father's passing. The man was 86, lived a great life, but it's still traumatic.
It's a loss. And so think of trauma as a wound. It's an injury. You can have an emotional injury, a spiritual injury, an ego injury, right? Like if you lose your father, you are different now, right? That's a loss. Yeah. And wounds heal, you know what I mean? And so that's the thing. So to me, trauma, and thankfully it's come down because people used to only assign PTSD to people who had been in wars, but of course it could be an abusive childhood. I've also seen people be victims of trauma who have had neglectful childhoods, no emotion at all. That is also traumatic. You know what I mean? So it really depends, but I like people to think of it as more of a descriptive thing rather than definitive. When I was a domestic violence counselor, I used to tell these ladies, this doesn't have to define you. You got 2 kids out of it. You made it to the States. Now you're a bad bitch. It doesn't have to hold you back. Because again, on the other side of every challenge is change, and as long as it doesn't make you bitter, it literally makes you better. Building a business has been traumatic. I've been evicted twice. I have cried so hard, my eyes hurt several nights, but now we were just talking about some days are perfect days. We have dream lives now. I'm really proud of those injuries, those battle wounds, all of those scars. I have a confidence I couldn't have had if I would have just stayed a social worker. So was it worth the fight? Yeah. Look at you. You are, a beast. In your career, in your personal life, you have overcome a lot and you didn't know you could do that.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think that if I didn't go through what I went through, I probably would not be the empathetic person that I am. I probably would not be as open to ideas as I am. And also, I think, I think I want to be a good steward of what life could be. If that sounds really strange, I think there are so many women out there that could be potentially trapped in a situation that they feel like they can't escape. And in many ways, I feel like I got to be a good steward of a person that escaped that and be able to just fly. And so, I think it's really a powerful place to be if you can look at it. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be toxic positivity, but if you can be positive about it, it really does. It can be transformative.
In its perspective, like I said, if you think of it as a hell, you just have a perspective now. Even if somebody hurt you, now I know more about that person, right? But I don't have to take it with me where I'm going. Right. I just want to get to the summit. And, and I loved it because my friend named her son Summit. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. The perspective, he's going to be top of the world. And she said, it's so funny that you said that. She said, oh, no, it's actually it's the Sanskrit words for summit, which means good friend, And I love that because like, I have so much empathy for women in business. I have so much empathy for people in poverty. When I was really broke, I gave my first TED Talk. Nobody knew, but inside the turmoil, keeping that stuff in. But now I have so much, think about it.
Can you send us the link for the TED Talk? Because I would love to be able to put it.
I was distracted. I'm not proud of it. I'm a perfectionist. I'm not proud of it. It's cool. It's not my best.
I'm going to be looking for it now.
It's on there. You can find it. But I literally got so.
No, I love TED Talks. I listen to them all the time.
Good. See, people said TED was dying. I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
But it's all about living. It's all about learning. Like the whole point of life to me is learning and laughing and making memories and making meaning with your friends and people you love. Like that's it. Everything else is like a temporary stressor. You can ignore it, or I hope you push through it, because life is inevitable. And that's why it's important to have people who go through it. It's just inevitable. We will have challenges in all of these things. Even rich white men have challenges. I've worked with a lot of them, And so somebody who has been through it before, someone who can give you grace and kindness and just a light out of that woods, like it's divine to me. It's divine. Like, I feel like it's my mitzvah. Like, I love it so much. I love therapy so much. I love being able to, my clients have taught me so much more than I've taught them. They're just in pain processing it. And like, I don't know what to do sometimes, but they find a way. They just keep getting up. Oh, I could cry thinking about it. Like, it's really beautiful. Like endurance, the endurance of the human spirit is really, it's literally, there are no limits. And you learn that in therapy, like impossible situation. Like I could tell you some stories, but it's illegal, but oh my God.
But no, I think it's a valid thing. I think that if there's any way that like we can almost pay it forward in many ways, because I think that, we're all, it's kind of like you said, we're all in this together.
Yes.
But yet in the same breath, we're all walking in our own path.
Yeah.
But I do think that in many ways I sit there and I think that there's so many people that come before me and come behind me. And it's my due diligence to make sure that the people behind me see that, no, that's possible.
It's possible.
That's possible.
Absolutely. That's progress. It's just like you're saying, the generational things, they didn't have somebody say, there's another way to do it. There's a better way to do it. And don't be so hard on yourself. This is a really hard way to do things.
Right. I don't want to get too caught up in the status quo, because you know what, like the status quo and the standards are bunk. They're not real. They're made up, and I don't fit into that.
I say that all the time. I just don't participate. People will tell you, oh, men are terrible. They always cheat. That's not my experience. I just don't participate in patriarchy. There's lots of men who like women like me, like there's lots of, and even in like, yeah, people are racist. Yes, people are sexist, but I'm not going to let it mess up my day anymore. You give those people power over you. And that's the best part of endurance. You really trust yourself, like not to get like hippy dippy, but my career has been evolving beyond mental health, which is kind of limited, as we were just talking about, to existential health. And so many things are like, who am I? And there's this book that I'm reading that talks about, they say, I am who I say I am, but most of us are raised in I am who they say I am,
Yeah, no, I can understand that.
And then we struggle and we suffer. I'm only supposed to do this, but I feel it's a conflict, right? And stress causes inflammation in our body, like physically, like mental and physical health are so combined. Beauty, if you look good on the outside, you feel better on the inside than if you just stay. And I'm like guilty of like not showering for a long time. Sometimes I just want to see how smelly I can get. It feels so alive.
You are so funny.
And sometimes my sweetheart, I have this, well, anyways, let me not incriminate myself. This feels like therapy, right? It feels so good to be yourself. What's wrong with it?
I agree. I agree. And it's like, and like you said, even with beauty, it's kind of like one of those things that, how you're feeling on the inside sometimes can be reflected on the outside. So it's really good to make sure you're taking care of all that stuff. But with that being said, I have seen more than one woman who has taken care of their outside, and it's kind of gave them that, I don't know what you would call it. Maybe it's confidence or I don't know. Sometimes I always feel like I remember being a hairdresser, and my goal was always to try and help my client actualize who they felt like in the inside, who they really felt like they represented. And I think that's really important. And when you can actually accomplish that, it does settle things down on the inside.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, like, and you see that, like I used to work with high school kids and they would cut, because like some people experience emotions physically and it hurts. They experience it like physical pain, and it matches, like the cutting is almost a release. So thank God they had a therapist like me who isn't automatically going to report them and get them institutionalized and traumatize them, separate from their families, versus just trying to understand why they're doing the things that they do and what might work better, and that's why I really believe in like the team, like even on the difference we call our therapist partners. We're not a doctor patient, we're partners. You have to teach me about you and I'm going to teach you about you. It's a mirror. Because we're equals. Yeah.
I actually have one more question about the difference, because this is very important. I think when you're looking for any kind of therapist or someone that is appropriate for you, do they have certain specialties and trainings that like are to help people with certain things? Because it's very funny because I know someone that was in therapy then, and it turned out their specialty really had nothing to do with the kind of things that they were trying to deal with. And they're like, therapy, meh. Not a big fan. And then I'm like, let's find someone that's appropriate for you.
A better match, for sure.
And now they're fantastic.
Of course. I mean, it makes all the difference, literally. Like, we curate really heavily on the supply side. There are bad therapists out there. There are bad coaches out there. People can and do say the wrong thing in low moments, and it will turn people off therapy or even expressing themselves forever. So I don't play with people's mental health. Like, I've seen it. Like, people have.
Yeah, but you know what? The difference is like you could have a bad hairdresser, but that won't stop you looking for another hairdresser. You can have a bad therapist and you'd be like, it's not for me.
Well, first of all, it's you avoid problems like the plague. Who wants to talk about bad things?
Right. True.
I have Netflix. Like, I could go outside. I could, and it's so much cheaper than therapy too. So who wants to pay $200 to like feel judged or not safe? So it's understandable. So we try to make it really easy to try different people, but more than anything, we try to get you to the right person. So you don't choose your therapist at the difference. You choose what you want to talk about. So we have about like 12, our top 5 are work-related stress, relationship stuff. Obviously financial anxiety is a big one. New parents, all parent-related struggles, and grief and loss. And sometimes that's not just death. It's like a sudden change, like friendship breakups are a big one. Losing a pet is a big one. Any sudden change, it's traumatic. You were used to operating a certain way. So those are like our big ones. And it helps you because I truly believe that therapy doesn't work if the therapist doesn't work for you. And
I'm going to say one more thing, because you and I had talked about this before we came on. It is something I know I feel very strongly about. And I do think it's worth stating again. One of the things that I had always talk about was my philosophy when it came to therapy. Therapy is like, if you got a toothache, you go to a dentist. Mm-hmm. If you are going through a life change or something's going on, therapy does not mean you have to do it for the rest of your life.
Right.
However, you have to treat your mental health much like your physical health. Mm-hmm. If something's not right, you take care of it. If you know something's coming up, we're going to be moving in 3 months, or, I'm going to be starting a new job soon, or I'm getting married in 6 months. Start the therapy now, even though you're feeling okay, because they're going to help you transition into that new world, because these are all things that they have on the list of top most stressful things to go through. And yet we sit there and ignore it and just go, hey, I can deal with it like everybody else. But if you are getting ahead of it, you don't have to go through all that.
Girl, this is what I've been trying to, you preaching this morning, Danielle, for real, because like this is what I'm trying, just like all healthcare, it should be preventative, not reactive, not reparative, not, cover your ass therapy, right? Like if you are prepared, if you have more skills, if and actually one of my, I've been in this space for a long time, and a lot of companies have come and gone just because it's hard to make money on therapy, period, because it's temporary, right? Versus like Netflix is forever, therapy, like you're saying, is temporary. So there's been a lot that have come and gone, but one of my favorite was this company called Onward, and they could basically predict when you would be upset, because self-report is very unreliable. I used to be a drug counselor, and I'd be like, how many drinks do you think you had last night? And they'd be like, 4 or 5. And then you find out it's 45. You know what I mean? So people are honest with themselves, right? And then they will pay to lie to their therapist. I used to have to
do the MyFitnessPal and put in all of I lied every single day.
See? And that's
every single day, because it made me feel better that I actually somewhere did it right.
I had stomach whites once, right? Forget about when I stopped at Checkers or Cane's or wherever. Exactly. And so that's what happens. So self-report, people will really pay to lie to me. And because they're not ready to face it. So again, it's that culture of avoidance. And so I loved it because you can tell, like we talk about triggers, like I can tell if you signed over your phone to me, if you have more meetings than you normally do, like I could predict that sooner or later you might crash or your bandwidth will be taxed and you'll feel overwhelmed. If you're logging onto Tinder more, if you're ordering more food, you know what I mean? I could just tell what you're looking at more. That will predict that you are in a state of anxiety. And you're looking for numbing effects, right? And so a lot of people, it used to be shopping addiction, porn addiction, drug addiction, but now it's internet and screen addiction. It's
TikTok.
seeking a numbing, a TikTok. Well, our TikTok, as we said, is edutainment. So, and it gives us joy, but it doesn't drain us like being on Twitter.
Which TikTok like edutainment?
I know, edutainment. It's all edutainment. I'm on ASL TikTok and look at me.
I can't do that. I can't do that. For some reason, it
show up on your For You page now because
always every night there's some live going on with someone doing ASL.
I know, right? Or I love the sound bath ones when I can't sleep. It helps me. I'm not ashamed. It's not.
You know what? I actually have a wave machine in my bedroom. Like it has like the ocean, and as soon as I hear it triggers me to go to sleep. So.
Triggers can be a good thing.
There you
go. Even trauma can be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, this was a fantastic conversation, and I would love to keep on going, but I know you have a little. I know you always have to go to, but thank you for all the wonderful truth bombs in there, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope everybody. Are you on social media at all? The difference, so people can go and take a look at anything, or
yes. So
we have the website.
Yes, you can go to thedifference.co and sign up for our waitlist. If you're not part of one of our co-working channel partners, we will be launching a direct-to-consumer version in 2023 that I'm really excited about. No insurance, no app, no appointment necessary.
That's amazing.
And my website is barthurtherapy.com, and it's got all my socials there. There's another B. Arthur you may have heard of. I'm B. Arthur Therapy, so I'll see you over there.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie. I tried looking you up on social media. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a challenge. Because Golden Girls, that one's got a hardcore fan base there right now.
I love being hidden. So
thank you for coming, B. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle. Bye, everyone.